Oh, what a day! What a lovely day!
Hey guys, Jim here. Welcome in once again. Today we're going to take a look at something that you typically wouldn't expect on my channel. It's a front flipper, but don't get too concerned about that because it's not strictly a front flipper. This is going to give you a couple of options of deployment, and that's why I absolutely love this knife. This is the Dawn by T.W. Price, and it's something, I wouldn't say brand new because the design and the prototypes have been going back for just about a year now, but people are just now starting to get them in their hands, adding them to their collections. And I'll be honest with you, from the very second I saw this knife, I absolutely knew that I had to have one. And this thing is truly incredible. And I'm going to tell you why. I'm going to get into some details on this knife, why I think that this could be, very well could be, the next Sebenza or something very, very close to its popularity because it's going to have that universal feel in the hand, that universal utility in the blade shape. And I got to tell you, it's a lot more fun to fidget, that's for damn sure. And yeah, believe it or not, even though I'm not a good front flipper, I can actually front flip this pretty damn good. So even if somebody like me can front flip it, well, of course, now when I say that, it won't work. I think that you guys are going to warm up to it as well. So without any further ado, we're going to get straight into the tabletop review, talk about this knife, talk about why I think it's so special. Because even though, yes, it looks good, there's a lot of good-looking knives out there right now. And this one, there's something special about it. There's actually a few somethings that are special about it, and I think it's going to resonate with a lot of people. This is the kind of knife that you actually want to carry on a daily basis. This is the kind of knife that I think that you're going to find a lot of use for, a lot of utility for, and it's also not good just for all that, for, you know, utilitarian use. I can't do it with my left hand. But because of the details and the way that it was made, it's a nice show-off piece as well. Now, there's a lot of different options that you can choose from in this, but I really, really, really like the all-black handle, and I'll tell you why. Actually, you're going to see why in just a couple of seconds here in the photography, because of the way the light dances across the milled pattern that's on this titanium. The black, there's something about the black. It's rich, it's luscious, it's damn near sexual. So let's go ahead and get into the photography. We'll get into the tabletop review, and I'll tell you why I think this may well be one of the best received overall knives in the vein of a Sebenza that we've seen in quite a long time. All right, and here we go. The T.W. Price Design Dawn. I got to tell you, man, this kid, 20 years old, has an amazing amount of creativity. I mean, just the packaging. Yeah, sure, it's just a cardboard box, but it's nice and clean and classy with his signature on there. The wax seal, how cool is that? Very, very cool. We get inside, and there is the knife. This is production sample number 1. This has been all around the world, man. A lot of people have had a chance to play with this knife and review it and show it to you. And it is finally my turn. It won't sit up on its own because of the way the pocket clip is. So we'll let it sit there like that. So the deal with this is you're looking between $265 and $280. And basically the price difference there is on the $265, you get this blade. In the $285, you get the hand rub satin. Now, for those of you that want more of a showpiece, I would definitely say go with the hand rub satin. It's beautifully, beautifully done. The OEM on this is Best Tech, and they did an absolutely fantastic job on their hand rub. I saw the pictures, couple of videos, and there we go. There's a nice, snappy little front flip from somebody that doesn't like to front flip. There it is, right there. So they did a great job on the finish. I like this finish, and we'll discuss this finish a little bit more in detail when I show it to you close up. I kind of like this finish in particular. Let's get the specs out of the way first so that we can just go straight into talking about the knife, talking about what I like about the knife and the maker as well. So bingo bango, here we go. Overall length of 7.5 inches. Your blade length is 3.3 inches, a nice little sweet spot there for somebody that likes a slightly smaller knife. Cutting edge is 3 inches after the finger choil. Blade thickness is 118 thousandths thick, so not delicate, but absolutely not thick at all. Very, very easy to work with as an EDC knife. And behind the edge thickness, I like the fact that he lists this on his website, is 18 thousandths. That's a really good thickness behind the edge. Again, not too delicate, but still very slicey and thin, but it's going to handle a lot of different types of cutting tasks very well without being a little bit too fragile at the edge. Blade steel is M390 at a 60 Rockwell. You've got a very high flat grind. Actually, I believe it's a more or less, no, it's not a full flat grind because you can see where the plunge terminates would be right about midway in that pocket. So a very high flat grind. Close length is 4.4 inches. Handle length is 4.25 inches. And you have, it says 3.3 ounces. Let's verify that because we like to do that live after I invested all this money, all $13, I think, in this incredible scale. There it is. Bull, right down to the, look at that, 3.3 ounces. He was absolutely correct. Man, this is cool. Again, as I mentioned before, the OEM on this is Best Tech, and they have been absolutely knocking it out of the park for the past year or two, doing really amazing projects, really, really cool knives. Oh, I love that deployment. You also have a captive pivot here, so when if you ever have to take out your pivot, tighten it or anything like that, you don't have to worry about the flat face pivot spinning. I love the fact that it's got the anodized pivot collars. If you want to remove the anodizing, that's easy enough, but I love the purple. I think it's really, really cool. There's internal pockets inside of the titanium frame to reduce weight, and in the future, he is going to be making those pockets even larger, further reducing the weight, which is always a good idea. Ceramic bearings and ceramic detents, so it's a nice smooth action. It's not completely drop shutty. You do have to do a little wiggle, jiggle, wiggle, wiggle, but it does go down nicely. Just like my ex-girlfriend in high school. Anyway, and you've got a steel lock bar insert and a blind screwed pocket clip, which I love that idea. I love the fact that it's fairly minimal on the hardware. I would have loved to have not seen these on the show side, but eliminating a screw or two there is a really, really good idea. Now, what would I like to see in a V2 in the future? Honestly, I'd really like to see a standard flipper tab added. He says that he designed this as a front flipper because he liked how it looked very, very sleek. He had experimented designing a few ideas with flipper tabs, and he just didn't like how disruptive it seemed to be to the overall design. And I get that, and I don't know if that was disruptive in the closed or open position, but there's ways to get around that for both closed and open. But I would love to see a very small minimalistic flipper tab, just so somebody like me that prefers to do a standard flip can do it. The reverse flick is phenomenal, even though these pockets in the blade are very small and very shallow. It is super easy to get in there with just the meat of your finger. You're not going to get a fingernail in there probably. I mean, yeah, I guess you can, but it's more reliable if you just jam the meat of your finger in there. It'll fly right open. I know I've been able to thumb flick it, but I can't do it right now. It will slow roll very, very nicely. Again, like that comparison I made earlier to his Sebenza, you have that freedom. If that's what you prefer to do, you can certainly do that. You've also got T8 hardware. That's a big deal, so you're less likely to strip out your screw heads if you ever decide to change out hardware or take the knife apart to do any kind of fixing. Oh, man. Listen, yeah. Listen to that. It just screams open. I was able to do that. Oh, look at that. You've never seen me do that on camera before because I don't do that. So I know I suck at it. So look at that. So if you're a front flipping kind of person, this has that perfect detent for you to be able to do that. Another thing I'd like to see in a future variation is the clip change. Number one, the ramp. I know he reduced the ramp and then rounded it off based on feedback from reviewers on the initial prototype. So I know it's not as invasive in the hand as it was, but honestly, no clip really should ever be made with the duckbill. What should be done is this should be just a tad thicker. It should be more of a straight clip. Across the top, it should be a flat clip, and then it should have the ramp underneath. Let me see if I have a knife here. Yeah, there's a good example. So your lip ramp really should be underneath the clip, and that allows it to slide into the pocket easily, and it retains it in the pocket very, very well, and you don't have anything stabbing you in the hand, and it doesn't look so awkward. But really, that's about it for the changes. I think it's phenomenal the way it is. The other change I meant to mention on the clip is I really want to see this milled pattern done in the clip. This is wasted real estate right here, and well, it looks fine, especially if you were to upgrade this, like you were to strip this black DLC off of here and then anodize it to match the purple. It would look really, really, really cool. Same thing for the standoffs. I would anodize those as well. But honestly, if the milled pattern was in the pocket clip just like the frame, it would really, really add a lot of personality and personalization to the overall design. So that's what I would do if it was me designing it and I wanted to make a V2. What do I love about this knife? I'm going to be honest with you, almost everything. I absolutely love the contouring that's been done. It's not overly rounded. It's not overly rounded at the edges where it kind of loses its shape. It is just perfect. So you've got a little bit of a swell in your hand. It feels phenomenal. Yet it's not so contoured that flat pivot and its pivot collar are sticking up off of the design. And that's kind of a tricky thing to do, especially with such a narrow knife. A lot of times they'll over contour it and then you'll see the edges at the top and the bottom of the pivot sticking out. They did a really, really fantastic job on this. I love the milled pattern. I love how it feels. It's nice and deep, so there is an actual texture to it. It's not just decorative. It feels, but it feels somehow soft too. But it feels so good in the hand, and that is my number one favorite thing about this knife is the way the handle feels. Your fingers just fall into those scallops and they just slide in this direction, but they don't slide in this direction. So if you're actually playing with the knife or you're using the knife, it actually works as traction. Not that you're going to be, I'm a super street fighter. But if you were to stab into something, your hand is very unlikely to slide up all of those ridges. I love how it feels. They gently softened out all of the outer perimeter so that the edge of those scallops are not sharp. They're not digging into you. Then there's a chamfer going around the lower side of the frame, making it easy for your fingers to wrap around it comfortably. Lock bar access is super easy. Very, very easy to unlock that lock bar. Lock bar cutout for the tension relief was done on the inside. While everybody begs for that to be done because it is a cleaner look, I love the fact Tyler is very, very in touch with how this knife was made, and every little tweak he mentions something that I've mentioned for years and years in other videos that you never hear anybody else talking about. While yes, the lock bar relief cut on the inside of the frame makes customers who don't make knives happy because yes, it does look cleaner, it is much more difficult to get consistency from knife to knife to knife with the same exact lock bar pressure. Having an accordion style cutout on the outside or even a regular notch on the outside is easier to deal with as a knife maker or a knife manufacturer. So while, yeah, sure, it looks great, he's even said that he's seen some inconsistencies that he wasn't happy with. So one of the big changes as these release is he's going to be doing, instead of a frame lock, it's going to be an inset tab lock, and you're not going to have the same type of relief cut. Also, by having the inset tab lock, if you're a lefty and you're finger flicking, your thumb isn't applying pressure to the lock bar, which forces the detent into the detent hole, making it harder to open. And if you're gripping it like this and doing any other kind of flipping, you don't have to worry about applying pressure to the lock bar in that way either. So that's a good idea. And it's also going to be a less interruptive look to the overall, to the milling. It's going to go straight through with no lock bar cut out. That's going to be great. Let's give you some quick size comparisons here while I continue to talk. I'm going to have to put it down in this reverse manner here because of the where the pocket clip sits. I'm going to show it up against a few other smaller knives that are pretty popular. We'll go up against the EMP EDC Thick Boy, which I have in for review from John. Thank you very, very much, John. So there it is, a little bit longer, obviously a lot more slender, a lot more practical for actual use and for EDC carry. Put it up against my awesome, truly love this knife, my Terrain 365 Invictus ATB with Teravantium. Man, that's a big old mouthful, isn't it? You see it does fall in a little bit shorter overall, and then when we go pivot to pivot to match up the blades, it's only a tiny bit shorter in the blade length than the Invictus. And if we go finger choil to finger choil, it's got just about the same cutting edge. So that's also interesting. He has maximized the cutting edge on that knife. Another little one that I absolutely love, EMP EDC Nimble, which will be significantly smaller by just about a half an inch. That's a big, big deal. And one more teeny tiny little EDC style knife, the Vero Engineering Mini Synapse. So even though this, when you read the specs, sounds small, it's not. It's not diminutive in any way. It is a fully capable, full-sized EDC knife. Yes, I understand the blade length is only 3.3 inches, hair over 3.25 inches, but it's a really great size. This falls, by the way, right in between a small and large Sebenza. So you've got something that I truly, honestly believe is a blade size that will work for nearly everybody out there, for carrying, for cutting, for, everything. Now let's talk a little bit about Tyler Price, who is the designer of this knife that is having these manufactured by Bestech, and where exactly he comes from. By the way, if you're a fan of Vero Engineering, this is Bestech as well. So you should already be familiar with the quality. I will say that the Dawn feels more substantial than a Vero, just because of the way that it's built. It just feels a little bit more substantial. It's substantial in the way that this is in the hand, so that gives you a good idea as well. So let's talk a little bit more about Tyler. He's 20 years old, which still blows my ever-loving mind. Jesus, man, when I was 20 years old, I was not driven enough to do stuff like this, and I was too busy chasing girls, man, to be perfectly honest with you. That's just the way it is. Oh my goodness, look at that. So he first got into knives when he was about 6 years old, and his grandpa took him on a backpacking trip. And on that trip, he also taught him how to sharpen knives after he cleaned all their fish. So he got this love for knives from his grandfather, who also then sat him down and taught him, hey, if you're going to have a knife and you're going to use a knife, you're going to learn how to maintain a knife. Here's how you resharpen it. Here's how you keep a good edge on it. So he taught him to respect the knife as well. And that's pretty awesome. I kind of dig that. It's nice to have that kind of influence in your life. Later on, when he was about 10 years old, he began drawing knives just out of this obsession with that knife that he had, and just kept drawing more and drawing more and drawing more. And he just became obsessed with creating the perfect design. Whether or not he ever planned on making a knife ever in his life or not, he just kind of became obsessed with it. So he would draw out hundreds of them and kind of take little pieces here and there and put that all together in just a couple of knife designs. So he found a pocket clip design that he liked, and he found a blade shape that he liked, and all these various different things, and he kind of put all those little details together in a couple fewer knives. He decided, you know what? I think it's time that I try to start making knives. And he went out and he bought a whole bunch of machinery and decided he wanted to teach himself how to make knives. It's funny because he was even talking to a really good friend of mine, Mike Stewart from Ecom Knives, and Mike was giving him tips and tricks here and there on how to grind blades and how to sharpen blades and all these things, so that he had some pointers on various different areas of knife making so that he could make that leap. But school and sports ended up taking up so much of his time that he never actually got the chance to do it. So all that machinery that he bought ended up just collecting dust. And then, just before he turned 19 years old, he was blessed with the gift of fatherhood. Yes, he had a little baby girl to take care of, and that took up all of his remaining time. And you know what? There's really, honestly, no better way to spend your time. I still think parenthood is the greatest thing that I've ever achieved in my lifetime. My two sons have just been absolute blessings in my life, even if they're pains in the asses, especially the one that's grown up and moved out. Anyway, both truly the best experiences I've ever had in my life. So I hope that he has a similar experience with his little girl. So, as I mentioned, he was talking a lot with Mike Stewart. It turns out that his biggest influences and what made him want to get into knives and collecting and knife making and everything else were Mike Stewart, Todd Begg, and Aaron Go. Now, Aaron actually has a really wonderful YouTube channel as well, where he documents making the knives that he makes and showing you how he does his process. And he's a very, very good and very knowledgeable knife maker. And it's funny that he even lists me as an inspiration since he began watching my videos when he was only 13 years old. How cool is that? He says that his taste and passion for knives came from the countless hours that he spent watching YouTube videos, both in reviews and knife makers giving pointers on how to make knives and everything else. So I thought that was pretty awesome too. Now, for those that don't know, the name Dawn actually comes from, and actually one of my favorite shows as well as his, Game of Thrones. Dawn was probably the most famous sword in Westeros. It was forged from meteorite. There was a scene in one of the later seasons, I want to say season 6, where Bran had a vision and he was able to see his dad, see Ned fighting in a great battle, and the knight that he was fighting, that he ended up killing, was carrying the Dawn, and he actually killed him with the Dawn, if I remember correctly. So yeah, it was a pretty big influence in the series and in the books, obviously. And it's funny enough, I even named one of my knife models after a character in Game of Thrones. That's where my Littlefinger name came from. So yeah, I think that's pretty cool. He kind of geeked out on that. Can I do this again? Oh, that makes me so happy. It makes me giggle like a little child. A little child with a slightly deeper voice, which would be really fucking creepy, wouldn't it? But how cool is that? I don't ever do that. And the detent and the action is so good on this knife that I'm able to. I told you I would talk to you a little bit about the finish on this, and I want to show that to you. What you've got is a fully bead blasted blade that was then stonewashed so that it's just beautifully smooth. And it may have even been vapor blasted by looking at how smooth the underlying finish is, but I'll just say bead blasted. And then this light stone wash, which creates this wonderfully smooth finish. It also, by the way, helps to seal the pores of the steel, because when you bead blast a steel, you're opening up the pores, and you can make it much easier for it to rust and corrode. So then going back over it with the stone washing not only gives you this great finish that allows it to mask light user marks, but it also helps to protect the steel as well. Love that long swedge that goes all the way to the tip. That is sexy as hell. He went very minimalistic on the finger channels here for the flicking. They're effective, but they don't really take away from the design at all. The jimping back here is a little bit soft because they've softened so much of this stone washing it, so it's not honestly all that effective. He does plan on adding jimping further down the blade for different cutting tasks, which I thought was a pretty good idea, quite honestly. And he's going to be adding, I think I mentioned it before, but he's going to be adding a detent ramp as well, so that you don't have it hanging up here. Honestly, it's not. Yeah, I guess it does. It does kind of hang up there a little bit. I'm just so used to, I'm going to move it more than that myself on typical closing. So that wouldn't have bothered me at all. You'd have to be super picky. Normally you want to add a detent ramp on a light detent, like where it's down here where it's engaging. And then you're having to bump it past. But I mean, it's all the way up there. I mean, you've barely moved that blade. But regardless, he's going to do it anyway, just to make things a little bit easier for people when they buy it. And I swear this thing has actually gotten smoother since it arrived just a couple of days ago. I love the way the light dances across this black finish. When you saw it in the photography, you saw what I was doing, where I was basically draping light over it, where you had areas that were lit and areas that were in shadows, because I wanted you to see how the light plays with the curvature and with the milled scallops that are in it, and the way that it lightly reflects light. It's not overly done, again, because it's actually a black wash finish, not like a full black PVD. So they've done the coating, and then they've stone washed it just like they did the blade, and that exposes highlights of the more natural gray titanium in the edges and in the top surfaces, and it gives you kind of a speckled finish. So it mats it down quite a bit. So it's got a little bit of reflectivity, but not like a satin finish like you see in the pivot. So the light dances off of it and just gently drapes itself over it in a really, really attractive way. So I've already told Tyler I absolutely am going to get one of these. I'm going to go for a black handle. I'm just not sure if I want to do this blade finish, because I love this blade finish, but he also offers a Damasteel option. And I'm like, man, this is the kind of knife I'd love to have Damasteel in. But yeah, you know what? That's what I'm going to do. Damasteel against that black. Oh, God, yeah. Yeah, I think that's the way I got to go. So as you can tell, I am actually very excited about this. I think it's a fantastic knife. When he goes and does another offering on these, because he just did the pre-order on July 31st. And wait. Yeah. This is August 10th. So I apologize that I didn't get my hands on this early enough to give you the heads up before the pre-order. But he's going to do more. This thing is so popular already. I can guarantee you that there's going to be more and more and more and more and more. Get one of these. Do what you have to do. Go follow him on Instagram so you can see the updates, see the changes, and see when he's going to be announcing the next pre-order. I must own one of these knives. Is it perfect? No. But it's so close to perfect. It is right there. It's on the cusp of perfectiveness. That's not a real word, but we're going to go with it. All right, guys, I'm out of here for now. Thank you, as always, for joining me. If you have any questions, please post them down below, and I'll see you on the next video.